tuned. The show is about to begin.
So I've been thinking about doing
Stay tuned. The show is about to begin. Stay tuned. The show is about to begin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stefan. Welcome to the conversation. Today we have, I have this problem all the time. Today we are talking about a lot. I've been gone for quite a hot minute here from Fireside. I had to move and I took some time off. But today we are talking not only about yesterday, or I would say 2 days ago, the Supreme Court's decision from affirmative action care. From there, we're going to move on over to Uganda. We're going to talk about them one more time, and then we're done. We're done talking about Uganda. We'll talk about Uganda or Ugandans seeking asylum from the UK because, as you know, Uganda has decided to do this outright war toward the LGBTQ community. And then we're going to move into our last little bit, which is going to be about Florida doing a conceal and carry but permitless. And then we're going to talk about just some of the new laws that are going into effect in Florida because you know how crazy we are. So all that right here in just one hot second.
Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Sure Rockstead. Can you feel it? Sure Rockstead. Can you feel it? Sure Rockstead. Can you feel it?
Okay, so let's talk about the Supreme Court's decision because that's primarily the first one. In the title of the show, we were going to talk about parents versus schools, but we'll have to move that to next week and talk about this decision a little first, right? So The Supreme Court said, here's what they ruled on Thursday, this past Thursday, that colleges and universities can no longer take race into consideration as a specific basis in administrations. A landmark decision that overturns a long-standing precedent that has benefited Black and Latino students in higher education. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the opinion for the conservative majority, said Harvard and University of North Carolina administration's programs violated the Equal Protection Clause because they failed to offer measurable objectives to justify the use of race. The opinion claims that the court was not expressly overturning prior cases authorizing race-based affirmative actions and suggested that how race has affected an applicant's life can still be part of how their application is considered. The liberal justices slammed the opinions in their dissent, saying that the decision will make practically impossible for colleges and universities to take race into account. Now, let's talk about that. How can I say this very educational wise? I feel like this is only going to affect colleges and universities that are, in a sense, give me 1 second. I want to make sure that my do not disturb is on. That this only has like an effect on like Ivy League schools. I don't feel like this is going to affect the community college aspects on that level. Just because, and here's my thing, I'm in the middle. I don't think that race has a place in education, right? Because it limits the persons, or it limits the school from having diversity. Now this says, because of this decision, it is going to affect diversity. And maybe someone out there in the audience, or maybe some of you guys who are listening to the podcast when this finally gets out, you can find me on I am Stefan Garrison on Instagram, or Build a Better Community, and comment on a post that I'll put up at the end of this show, is that I don't see a place for race in colleges. I think everyone should be accepted. I understand that there are some colleges that are historically Black colleges, right? I understand that there are some that are historically white in a sense, and that race does play an effect into them. But at the same time, you have to look at, if I want an education in college or whatever the case may be, I don't want my race to have an effect on it, because then it's not an equal opportunity type of place, right? But maybe I'm understanding that wrong. Maybe I'm just not understanding it from a broad perspective, or whatever the word is. So here's what they said. It says that he says the programs involve racial stereotyping and had no specific endpoint. The opinion claims that courts were not, we already read that part. I'll reread it again just in case. It says that they violated the Equal Protection Clause. He said the opinion claims the court was not expressly overturning prior cases applicants' life should be. But here's what you should know. The reaction of GOP officials celebrated this decision. Democrats blasted the court. House Speaker McCarthy said that justices just ruled that no American should be denied education opportunities because of race. Republican Ted Cruz, who's in Texas, as most of you know, who sits in the Senate Judiciary Committee, said in a statement, "This is a great day for all Americans. Donald Trump, everyone, all the Republicans are like, oh my God, this is a great day for America." As I said, I think, and maybe, like I said, maybe I'm thinking about this wrong. This is my opinion and whatnot like that. Maybe this race shouldn't play an effect into the education system. It shouldn't, right? If it doesn't play an effect into the lower schools, when you get into college, remember, college is a choice. It's not something that everyone has to do. Most people don't do it. But I think on this level, I'm in the middle. I'm not leaning right and I'm not leaning left. I'm kind of neutral, saying, yeah, race shouldn't play an effect. It shouldn't have an effect in whether or not a college accepts you. Just my opinion. There are some civil rights leaders out there and education advocates that warn of diversity impacts from today's decision. They go on to say that the Supreme Court's landmark decision to bar colleges and universities from considering race as a specific basis for administration will make it more difficult for schools to achieve a diverse student population. That's what civil rights leaders said. The gutting of administration action upends a long-standing precedent that has benefited disadvantaged Black and Latino students in higher education. The practice has been in place since the 1960s as a tool to prevent discrimination at selective institutions. That's the key word here, selective institutions, many of which historically only admitted white students. Okay? Now universities across the country seeking diversity will be charged with finding other ways to reach out to Black and Latino students. The task, researchers and education officials say, will not be easy. Wisdom Cole, National Director of the NAACP Youth and College Division, called the rollback affirmative action a dark day in America. I want to read something else. I want to reread that part to you. It says, now universities across the country seeking diversity will be charged with finding other ways to reach Black and Latino students. Now, in my opinion, you just advertise, right? Like I'm looking at different colleges to go to complete my bachelor's, and you know, there's some on Peacock right now that are advertisement, right? Or go out to those schools. You know, you can always go to these, I would say, in my opinion, these poor Black communities, right, who are unfunded or underfunded, I should say, and go seek out talent there. There's plenty of smart Black students who come from low income neighborhoods and schools that are derated and are the smartest people in the world. So I think, yes, it will be a little more legwork, but I think it's something, if you want diversity so badly in your university, you're going to find ways to get Black and brown students. Anyway, so it says that affirmative action has been a beacon of hope for generations of Black students. Cole said in a statement, it stood as a powerful force against the insidious poison of racism and sexism aimed to leveling the playing field and provide a fair shot at a high quality education for all. Students across the country are wide awake to the clear and present danger enriching on their classrooms. The Supreme Court has also sparked the conservative activist Edward Bloom, who filed lawsuit in 2014 against Harvard University and the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, challenging their use of race-conscious administration. Bloom and other critics of affirmative action have said colleges' administrations should be based as equal standards and merit. So, as I said, Chief Justice Roberts said that it violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment because it failed to offer measurable objectives to justify the use of race. He said the programs involved racial stereotyping and had no specific endpoint. The playing field is not level, civil rights leader experts say in the Supreme Court ruling. Racial diversity at colleges and universities, particularly at competitive Ivy League schools, may suffer, they said. A study by the Georgetown University Center of Education and Workforce found that colleges and universities are less likely to meet or exceed their current levels of racial diversity in the absence of race-conscious administration. They also are less likely to reflect the racial makeup of the population graduating from the nation's high schools. Zach Marble, a researcher for Georgetown, said that he expects the number of Black and brown students attending selective colleges nationwide will drop from the current 20% to about 16% without affirmative action in place. Marble said race-neutral practices have not driven the diversity many colleges hope for, and some students are simply not applying. So, and I mean, I was talking to my Lyft driver, and we were talking about this as well. College is not cheap. You know, you have to now, at first, back in the old days, you were just going to college and getting whatever degree that you really wanted to set your mind on. But now you have to truly know what you want to go to school for, because you don't want to be, and trust me, I hear horror stories now that people are $80,000 in debt and they're working. Oh, and I'm not gonna throw shade at Enterprise, but let's say they're working at Enterprise, and you're like, why do you have a 4-year degree and you're working at Enterprise? Well, I figured it's not something I wanted to do. So if you're taking your time going to college, especially for people who are in high school and you're applying and whatever like that, take your time. I can't stress enough of taking your time and getting an education. Or I should say, taking your time to decide exactly what you want. You want a degree that can be flexible, right? Because you want to be able, if what your dream job is, you don't like it, you have other avenues to be able to take that degree at. There are plenty of degrees that you can do that with. But don't just set yourself on a degree where you're it's very specific and you're set. Like you're set in that area. So find a degree that's flexible, that if you decide to leave job A, you can essentially go to job B or job C, or even just have it as a general and be able to do something from that. So we're going to move on from that. We're still going to talk about schools. I want to report that over 350 books so far as of last year have been banned here in Florida. There was a news article that got put out in April that said that Florida's been banning a lot of things these days. From AP African American Study course to classroom gender identity discussions to TikTok on university phones. Governor DeSantis' administration and the state Republican-dominated legislature have instituted a dazzling numbers of regulations restricting what Floridians can say, read, scroll through mindlessly. It's part of the nationwide push for conservative politicians to draw their battle lines in the culture wars and signal their conspiracy and their ideology of this battle with anti-woke. We are going to do a show on woke. It'll just be later, a couple weeks from now. Still, there's one item school districts in Florida appear to have consistently banned more than almost any other U.S. state: books. The nation has been in a surge of book banning over the past 2 years as parents, conservative activists, elected officials have flooded school districts with requests to wipe scores of titles from classrooms and libraries, with Florida still leading the pack of number of incidents. After more than 200 books were banned in various school districts across Florida between the summer of 2021 and 2022, districts continue to crack down, banning 357 books between July and December of 2022. According to a nonprofit organization, the PEN America, the organization reports that Florida had the second highest number of book banning incidents in the nation during the period, trailing only Texas. The surge of removal of books, many of which are about race, sexuality, sexual orientation, gender identity, came amid a flurry of new Florida laws such as the Stop Woke Act, which restricts teaching about systematic racism in school, and the so-called Don't Say Gay bill, which bans institutions involving gender identity and sexual orientation before 4th grade, recently extended to, in large parts, through the end of high school under the new Florida Department of Education rule. So, give me 1 second. So, in a sense, we're not going to have any books to read, right? We're not going to have any books to read. What's education if you can't read books? You know, the easiest way for people not to read books that they don't want to read? Don't read it. Don't pick it up. Don't go to the library and don't pick it up. 300. And it goes on to say that while the new laws don't ban specific titles, they're opened the door for activists to challenge dozens of books in Florida schoolhouses on the grounds that they contain non-compliance content. The new laws and administration rules have cited that by teachers, librarians, administration, and parents alike as the reasons for books being removed. Parents are given so much power down here in Florida. Like I said, it's not education if you are restricting. It's almost like it's not segregation. It's a word that I can't think of right now, but it's not education. It's like pretty much babysitting, right? Fear of tempting the wrath of parents or the Florida Department of Education has left many educators walking on eggshells. The state recently mandates that librarians undergo a training to avoid selecting books that violate Florida legislation and to err on the side of caution when selecting materials. Florida has argued in court that the Don't Say Gay bill applies only to classroom materials, but in practice, some county officials have readily restricted access to school library books based on challenging, mirroring the bill. Because the law are so vague, everybody's confused and everybody's a little scared. Reagan Miller, a mom and a leader of the Florida Freedom to Read Project. During March press conference, DeSantis showed an audience in Tampa clips of the book, including graphic novels of sexual images, and he claimed that they were found in a Florida public school. He said his administration was only trying to remove inappropriate materials from classrooms and media was perpetrating as book ban. Well, it is, because if they're inside of the library, that means they're an education purpose, right? Not everybody wants to. Everyone has a different learning style, whether it's visual, obviously, whether it's visual, audio, whatever the case may be. And some kids rather read it from a book than hearing it from someone else, maybe they understand it more by reading the book and whatever the case may be. But that's what school is for. It's for you to be able to express how you feel. It's for you to go into the library and pick up a book and then you're like, oh, I want to read the next book. Ooh, because that's how you're learning. You're absorbing all the knowledge. So then when you're having conversations with your friends, you can be like, hey, did you know this? And they're like, no, I didn't know this. Well, now you do, right? It's essentially here in Florida and in Texas, you're essentially limiting what children can learn, right? We want them to be a productive member of society and come out of school and whatever like that, but they can't do it when we're restricting what they can read, what we can talk about in school, because teachers aren't teachers if they can't teach. Now you have teachers walking on eggshells about, ooh, I can't really talk about that. I can't talk about this. I can't talk about this. Well, what can we talk about? I don't know. Here's algebra. You can do that. Well, apparently to DeSantis, there's some math books out there that are racist against white people. I don't know. I can't make this stuff up. But I will make a post about this on our Instagram at Build a Better Community, and I am Stefan Garrison, and you can comment down below and tell me what your opinions are. So we're going to move over to Uganda. As I've told you before, Uganda has done an extreme measure. If you thought the United States was restricting by using certain bathrooms and can't get married to the same sex in certain states, then Uganda has taken that and went to like cloud 1,000. Now Ugandans are trying to ask the UK for help. Stick around as we talk about that next. Hello, everyone. My name is Stefan, and you're currently listening to The Conversation. Here is what's coming up next. So the UK government told to give LGBTQ plus Ugandans safe asylum route as anti-homosexuality bill looms. Now this has already been out there, right? I reported it before. But politicians and charities are calling on the UK government to create a safe and legal route for people, Ugandans, fleeing Uganda for the homosexuality bill. Uganda's parliament passed the anti-LGBTQ plus bill for a second time on Tuesday, May 2nd, removing a provision that would make it illegal to simply identify as LGBTQ plus. It remains a deeply troubling piece as the legislation is designed to prosecute the community. Within its clause in the introduction of the death penalty for the crime of aggravated homosexuality, which is said to mean having sex with a minor, having sex while HIV positive, or engaging in incest, right? With the bill now awaiting President whatever, which he, Yoel something, the lack of safe asylum route for LGBTQ Ugandans is a urgent issue. So, the I can't even speak today. The anti-homosexuality bill will mean that Uganda has among the harshest anti-LGBTQ laws in the world, and a violent act on Ugandans are likely to increase in the wake. I don't know if you have been seeing, but my TikTok has been blowing up with Ugandans across all of Uganda, who have been publicly speaking about what's going on, how they are all protesting. But let me tell you this, Uganda isn't like the United States where they won't shoot you, but Uganda, they will. And, you know, they're already threatening the death penalty. They're threatening putting you in jail for up to 10 years if they catch you outside, like holding hands with another man. And that, you know, and apparently a lot of Ugandans do not like LGBTQ plus. The UK government must urge Uganda president to veto the bill. Well, it's already passed, so that's already done. So, Maggie Chapman, equality spokesman for the Scottish Greens, branded the Ugandan bill as appalling, right? So there's an obligation of all governments who believe in human rights to oppose this brutal bill. Nobody should be attacked or criminalized for who they are or who they love. The UK Home Office said absolutely shocking track record when it comes to the rights of the refugees and oppressed communities, but they can't stop the calls or demand for change. It's time for the UK government and others to condemn these brutal laws in the strongest terms and to provide real and concrete support and safety for those who are being targeted and hurt. As you know, the United States has been doing a lot of things with Africa recently, and I don't think Uganda is going to be getting an invite to the party anytime soon. So, there are charities that support the LGBTQ people seeking asylum into the UK, said the government illegal migration bill would make it harder for queer Ugandans to find safety anywhere or elsewhere. The bill currently in the House of Lords would mean that asylum seekers who arrive in the UK through unapproved routes, such as via the Channel, would be removed to Rwanda or another third country. Over the last year and a half, we've supported more than 20 Ugandan people to seek safety here, and we're worried that these new laws mean many more will have no choice but to flee Uganda. There's no resettlement scheme for members of the LGBTQ community in Uganda who are under the proposed anti-gay law could face life in prison or even the death penalty. This makes it a lot harder for them to come to UK. UK's government new refugee ban bill will make it almost impossible. The charity also warned that the Ugandans who seek asylum in UK will likely be detained in immigration detention center under current government policy. Research has shown that that people face bullying, harassment, and abuse in the UK immigration detention center as well. As caring people, most of us would welcome the LGBTQ plus people that can't be themselves in other countries, but that are hoping to rebuild their lives in the UK. However, the government's telling them that they will be punished for coming here, locked up and sent away to another country, perhaps one that's never heard of and may be dangerous for LGBTQ. So even though Ugandans of the LGBTQ plus community want UK's help, UK may not be very open to helping. They can always come into the United States. You got to get over the water first, over the ocean. You know, whoosh. No? Nothing? Okay. All right, so Uganda, terrible. I will never visit that country, okay? Now, we're going to talk about one last thing, and then we're going to wrap up because we're at 7:36. We are going to talk about Florida becoming the Wild Wild West.
Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Sure Rocksteady. Can you feel it? Sure Rocksteady. Can you feel it? Sure Rocksteady. Can you feel it? Feel it.
If you thought Florida had issues before, now we have a lot of more issues. So, as of today, all the wonderful crackheads out there who have a gun or a pistol that have been background checked are now able to carry permitless. You still have to conceal it, but it's permitless now. So it goes on to say that Floridians will be able to carry concealed guns without a permit start on Saturday. DeSantis signed the bill in April, which will do away with mandatory training, license fees, background checks needed to carry a concealed firearm. Now, what I just read you is probably the most dangerous statement, which will do away with mandatory training, license fees, and background checks. What the fuck? Mandatory training, which I can say, even though I was prior law enforcement in the state of Florida, because I was prior law enforcement, I don't need to take the class. But I took the class just for shits and giggles. The one that I took was a joke. I cannot make it up. It was a complete waste of my 4 hours of my life, and it was a complete joke. I think the safety class should be way more in depth with people handling guns, because it's a gun. Like, it's not a BB gun. It's a gun that can take someone's life. And some of these training courses are a joke. They don't really teach safety. There's always someone in there who is from a third party who's trying to sell you insurance to protect yourself. It's like legal representation that you have on retainer if you shoot someone. And that's pretty much what it was, right? I think it should definitely be a universal background when it comes to owning a gun, because owning a gun is a huge responsibility. If you're going to make, if when you want to become a police officer, you go through not only state, but federal background, that's what you should do if you're trying to own a gun, because it's just that serious, right? So a political professor at the University of Central Florida said there are some concerns with the new permitless carry law may result in increase in violent crimes. He cited in 2019 there was a study that was done on guns, right? And they found that states that adopted these rights to carry laws, permitless carry, this kind of thing, saw an increase in violent crimes over the next decade between, they say, 10 to 15%. He goes on to add that not much support for the new law among residents, and we actually also saw a poll in the University of North Florida that said maybe more than 70% of Floridians don't like this law. The new law allows anyone who can legally own a gun in Florida to carry a conceal. People who do must also have their ID with them. If requested by law enforcement, there are still places that are going to prohibit firearms. But you can still get your permit, which I suggest everyone still do, because you're taking that one extra necessary step to protect yourself, right? I honestly think it's just not going to make things safe, essentially, for everyone, because Walmart is no longer safe. You just never know who's going to be. You just never know who's going to be carrying. I mean, you don't know that now. But I say go out, get proper training to do this. Make sure you go to the gun range, get practice, shoot. Make sure you can handle a gun, because there's a blowback to it too. As you're firing, that gun is jumping back up. Do your due diligence, okay, people? Do your due diligence. Now, I want to get into one more thing before we wrap up at 7:45, is let's talk about some of the laws that just went into effect as of July 1st. But we'll do it on, girl, spill the tea. Spill the what? Spill the tea. Like, tell me what's going on. I don't understand what you're asking me. You know what? Forget about it. Moving on. All right. On Girl, Spill the Tea. let's talk about some new laws that went into effect on Florida. If you are an undocumented immigrant, it will be harder for you to find employment in Florida and criminal or anyone to transport you in or out of the state. They say that as of Saturday, Florida, oh my God, this is so loud. Florida will enact some of the harshest anti-immigration laws in the country. Here's what's changing with immigration. Transporting a minor or more than five Transporting a minor or more than five undocumented people into the state carries a second-degree felony. Companies with 25 or more employees will have to use the federal E-Verify system when hiring workers. Penalties for employers who do not verify their employee status will face suspension of their license to operate. Local governments will be banned from contributing money to organizations creating ID cards for undocumented immigrants, and driver's license issued to non-citizens will be barred for the use of Florida. Hospitals receiving state or federal Medicaid reimbursement will be required to track how much money is spent on undocumented immigrants in emergency rooms and must ask if a patient is in the country legally. In 2014, a law that allowed undocumented immigrants to be admitted to practice law in Florida will be repealed, and the Division of Emergency Management Unauthorized Alien Transport Program gets $12 million to continue migrant relocation program of transporting. Okay, number 2. If you use a public bathroom in Florida, you are required to use the one that lines up with the sex of your birth. Listen here. Trans people are now barred from entering certain bathrooms that do not match their gender. CS/HB 1521 facility requirement based on sex applies to bathrooms at facilities at such as public school, colleges, universities, state and local government buildings, prisons, and jails. Under the law, people who enter bathrooms designated for the opposite sex could face trespassing charges. The bill includes exceptions for situations involving bathroom use by children under the age of 12, seniors, and people with developmental disabilities. The Florida law also defines a female as a person belonging at birth to the biological sex which has the specific reproductive roles of reproducing eggs. It defines a male as a person belonging at birth to the biological sex which has the specific reproductive role of producing sperm. Ouch. Number 3, schools in Florida will be starting later. As of Saturday, July 1st, middle schools may not begin the institutional day earlier than 8 a.m., and high schools will be barred from starting the school day before 8:30, according to a newly passed middle school and high school start time bill. Don't turn off your alarms yet. School districts have until 2026 to 2027 school year to make the change. Moving on, healthcare providers for Florida can deny your service based on their moral, ethical, or religious belief. Bullshit. According to the Protections of Medical Consensus Bill, CSSB 1580, any healthcare provider or facility licensed under a dozen different statutes, including doctors, nurses, pharmacists, hospitals, mental health providers, medical transport services, clinical lab personnel, nursing homes, and more may refuse services if they have a conscience-based objection based on a sincerity held religious, moral, or ethical belief. The bill also adds the following protections. Healthcare payers, such as employers, healthcare insurers, and health plans may refuse payment. Healthcare providers and payers are protected from liability for providing consensus-based healthcare. Medical boards and departments of health are prohibited from taking disciplinary action or denying license to such healthcare provider if they have publicly spoken or written about healthcare services or policies. This includes but not limited to social media, according to the bill. Let me explain that just a little bit further because we talked about this before. This healthcare bill essentially means that if you go to your doctor and you're like, hey, I'm a gay man or I'm a lesbian or I'm bisexual or whatever, or even transgender, this doctor can deny you based off their religious belief. Remember, we talked about a story about a university headmaster who said that his students were putting on a drag show for charity, and he said, based on his religious beliefs, he did not want that drag show going on to the school. This bill is essentially what that is. Even your insurance. So let's say that you work for Disney or you work for Universal, whoever you work for, that company can essentially deny you if they're like, God forbid they find out that you're gay or something like that, or you're Muslim or whatever the case may be. This bill essentially fucks up healthcare for everyone, right? It says moral, ethical, or religious beliefs. Morally, that doctor doesn't treat black people because he thinks that we are dirt, spick. We're not human, right? Religious belief. There's a lot of people out there, especially here in Florida, that are very conservative, right? Conservative doctors who religiously do not believe that a man should live with another man. And you tell your doctor, hey, I need PrEP, I need an HIV treatment, whatever the case may be, they can deny you. If you book a doctor's appointment and you want to get PrEP, you go through your insurance, right? They can deny you. And remember, that list is very long. That says, it says doctor, nurses, pharmacists, hospitals, mental health care providers, medical transport services. The fucking paramedic can deny you. Clinical labs, nursing homes, and more. I have to move out the fucking state. That's pretty much what that means. If you are a teenager, you cannot drive a golf cart in Florida without a permit or a driver's license. No one fucking cares about that. You can't use TikTok on campus Wi-Fi or on a school or government issued device. Wow. It says universities around the state have already were banning TikTok on school equipment due to personnel security risks. CSHB 379 technology in K through 12 public schools make it official and prohibit applications on government issued devices. Adds the app to the list of applications created and maintained by a foreign country of concern that are banned from city, counties, and state issued phones and devices. You can fly some flags and park your boat in the back whether your HOA likes it or not. If you've been battling your local homeowner association over the flag outside your home, you may see an end in sight. Starting Saturday morning, homeowners may fly portable, removable official flags no larger than 4 feet, 6 feet, regardless of any HOA restriction rules. The HOA can't say anything. Oh, but it does give you may fly flags up to 2 of the following. You can fly a United States flag, an official flag of the state of Florida. A flag represents the United States Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps. You can fly a POW. Be sure to watch my friends Jill and Tony on Wednesdays. Jill has a show at 6:30 called Wait With Me, and then you have Tony's show, or Tony and Jill's show. I'm right at 8 o'clock. Be sure to join the beautiful Monica on Tuesdays at 8 o'clock. And be sure to join the relationship experts at 6 o'clock on Wednesday with Arlene. Amazing shows. You always have to be here for it. I'm doing a little bit better with trying to get these shows. As I said, I'm on the road constantly, so when I can get these shows out to you, I try and do them fast. With that being said, I'm going to not take up any more of your time. We are officially launched on Apple Podcast. Yay, it's been a while. I'm still working some kinks out with Spotify, but you can catch us on iHeartRadio. We're about to launch on Pandora pretty soon. That way, if I can't do a show here on Fireside, I do have the equipment where I can just do a show naturally like I was before, or still do a show on Fireside, have Fireside do all the work for me, and then post it for you. We did have a brand new episode that came out last week. It was a show that we did several weeks ago. I just finally got done editing and put it out for you. Until then, we still have some other changes here on the conversation. We're still working on our social media platform. As a whole, equipment, we're still upgrading, so we're getting some new upgrades with that. And then you can expect within probably the next month or two, the name of our show will be changing. I will announce that as soon as I can. Until then, I love you all. Be safe, be kind, be different. Treat everyone the way that you want to be treated, because this world is getting just way more dangerous than, than we all expect for it to come to. So, I'll see you guys. I love you all. Be safe out there, okay?